Imagine this, a 13-year-old Kobe Bryant, just another kid trying to make his mark in the world of basketball. But unlike most teenagers, Kobe wasn't just playing for fun. He had a mission, and that mission started with a list. A kill list. You see, there was a popular ranking system at the time, Street and Smith's basketball rankings, that ranked the top young basketball players in the country. And Kobe Bryant, he was ranked 57th. For most kids, that might be a badge of honor, but for Kobe, it was a fuel for the fire. He wasn't satisfied, not even close. On his bed at night, he'd read that list over and over. He'd memorize the names above him. He made it his personal mission to pick off those other 56 names. And so he studied them, worked out exactly what were their strengths and weaknesses, understood why other people rated them as top players, and he then tracked them down. On the AAU travel circuit, Kobe made it his personal mission to dominate each and every one of them whenever he faced off against them. He didn't just want to be good, he wanted to be the best. He wanted to show that these other kids had no right to be above him. And fast forward to his senior year of high school, and that 13-year-old boy who was once sat at number 57 on the list, he was now ranked number 1 in the country. And the rest is of course history. Now, we're often told that comparing ourselves to others is dangerous, that it leads to self-doubt, insecurity, and frustration. But here's the truth. Comparison, when done right, can actually be a powerful tool. Kobe didn't just compare himself to others. He used that comparison as fuel. It wasn't about envy or insecurity. It was about creating a roadmap, a clear path to where he wanted to go. So despite what common knowledge might tell us, comparing yourself to other athletes can be a good thing. If you do it in the right way, it can be one of the most powerful weapons that you have to advance your career. And so in today's video, I want to give you a roadmap of how to get comparison to other athletes right. Because if you get it wrong, that is what leads to massive drops in confidence, fears that you'll never make it, and your motivation being completely destroyed. There are 3 things that you must do to ensure that comparison works for you rather than against you. So pay close attention and let's get started. So what exactly is social comparison and why do we do it? Well, social comparison is a natural human instinct. It's the process of measuring ourselves against others so that we can make sense of our world and our place in it. Simple as that. It helps us assess our skills, behaviors, and accomplishments. Are we keeping up? Are we falling behind? It's a way to measure progress. And here's the thing, it's not always a bad thing. In fact, comparison can be neutral. It only turns negative when it starts to hurt your confidence or makes you feel inadequate. But when harnessed correctly, it can serve as a way to challenge yourself, to push yourself further than you thought possible. Now in sports, social comparison plays an even bigger role. Athletes are constantly surrounded by teammates, competitors, rankings, and stats. In this environment, comparison is inevitable. Every practice, every game is an opportunity to measure your performance against others. Who's faster? Who's stronger? Who's scoring more points? And here's why that matters. Sports are competitive by nature. Unlike a lot of other areas in life, in sport, there really are limited resources that you're fighting for. There's a limited number of places in the team. There's a limited amount of minutes available to be played. There's a limited amount of contracts, scholarships, or draft picks available. There's a limited amount of trophies and prize money. So you have to be aware of who else is standing in your way of those resources. If you're an athlete who really is driven to be the best, comparison can help fuel that drive. By looking at others, you can see what's possible, where the bar is set, and how much work is required to get there. It also allows you to see who is on your shoulder as well, people who are just behind you in the pecking order. So you can keep an eye on them too, as well as the people ahead of you. So look, I think this generic advice that people have of don't compare yourself to others really doesn't apply to elite sport, because elite sport is the most competitive field there is in the entire world. There's only around 500 spots of being a Premier League football player at any one time. Compare that to another highly competitive career field, the tech industry, for example. In the US alone, there are around 5 million people who work in tech. And that's a field people say is hyper competitive. So in other areas of life, yes, you can get away with not really comparing yourself to others because there's actually such an abundance of opportunity out there. But in sport, the honest truth is that the opportunities are extremely limited. Fighting over tech jobs is like fighting over a massive loaf of bread. You'll easily get a chunk if you've got a shred of talent. But in sport, you're fighting over literal crumbs. And even if you have insane talent, you might not even get a fraction of a crumb. So if you don't compare yourself to others, you're in dreamland. Your head is in the clouds, and it's actually naive to think, oh, if I just worry about myself, then I'll make it. I wish I could tell you that that's true, but I'd be lying to you. But don't think that comparison has to lead to panic, fear, and worry because you feel that so many people are better than you or have more chances of making it than you. Comparison can be leveraged to your advantage, just like Kobe Bryant did with that kill list. So let's now talk about 3 ways to make comparison to others your secret weapon. The first way is to compare with logic, not emotion. When you compare yourself emotionally, it often leads to feelings of inadequacy, frustration, or envy. You might see an athlete who's faster, stronger, or more successful and think, I'll never be as good as them. But that kind of emotional response clouds your judgment and can hold you back. Instead, you need to approach comparison like an analyst. Use logic to evaluate where you stand and where you want to go. Logical comparison means looking at the facts. It's about assessing the details that actually matter. When you see another athlete excelling, break it down. What are they doing differently? How much are they training? What specific skills are they mastering that you need to improve? You need to focus on measurable elements, things that you can then control yourself and improve. Emotional comparison often triggers thoughts like, they're better than me. But logical comparison asks, what specific steps can I take to get closer to their level? So here's how you can really put this into practice. Firstly, track data. Start by tracking your own performance, whether it's your sprint times, your accuracy in passing, or strength in the gym. Collect real data on yourself. Then if you're comparing yourself to another athlete, look at where you stack up in those specific areas and make an objective comparison. Maybe their sprint times are better than yours, but is their endurance also better? Find the areas where you need to improve and where you're already ahead. Then also study their habits. Instead of focusing on their natural talent or achievements, study how they got there. What habits and routines do they have? What kind of mental preparations do they do before a game? Use that information to logically adjust your own approach. For example, if you notice that a top athlete practices more outside of team training, logically it makes sense that their extra work is making a difference and you can apply the same work ethic to your own routine. And then lastly, set clear logical goals. When you see another athlete performing at a higher level, break it down into steps. Let's say they're stronger in a specific skill, like free throws in basketball. Instead of letting that make you feel inadequate, create a logical plan to improve in that area. That could mean committing to an extra 50 free throws a day to close the gap. Comparing with logic rather than emotion keeps you grounded. Emotion can skew your reality. You might feel like you're behind when in reality you're just a few steps away from catching them up. By taking the emotional charge out of comparison, you can focus on practical, actionable steps that lead to progress. And then the second way to harness comparison effectively is to use it as a source of inspiration and innovation. Instead of seeing comparison as a threat or a measuring stick, use it as a creative spark. Look at what others are doing and let it inspire you to think outside the box and innovate in your own approach. This method transforms comparison from a competitive pressure into a catalyst for new ideas and strategies. To do this well, you need to study the different approaches of athletes who excel in various aspects of your sport. If you're a tennis player, for example, you may take inspiration from one player's serve, another's forehand, and another's backhand. The point is, someone who is better than you at something, they've typically worked out something that you haven't yet, so you may as well learn from them. And so after doing this, you then need to adapt and innovate based on what you've learned. If you notice that a competitor employs a particular technique or mental strategy effectively, consider how you can integrate elements of it into your routine in a way that aligns with your strengths and your goals. Innovation often arises from blending proven methods with your own unique approach. You don't want to be a direct copycat of those who inspire you because you'll just become a poor man's version of this. If you've played any level of football over the past 15 years, you will have played against hundreds of Ronaldo wannabes who do nothing but try to replicate his stepovers, chops, and free kick technique. And those guys never make it because they just try to imitate rather than innovate. And so take the inspiration gained from comparison to experiment with new techniques and training methods. If you want to integrate something similar in your game, ask yourself the simple question, how can I use this to further my individual game? It's about taking an idea and then molding it into something that suits you as an individual athlete. By leveraging comparison in this way, you transform it from a source of stress into a powerful tool for personal growth and performance improvement. And then the final way to make comparison a powerful tool is by using it to build a supportive network around you. Rather than seeing athletes solely as competitors, view them as potential allies, mentors, or associates. When you compare yourself to others, look beyond rivalry and focus on how these relationships can actually benefit you. Building connections with those who excel in your sport can provide valuable insights, encouragement, and opportunities for mutual growth. There is such a thing as healthy competition. It's what we have inside my peak performance community, the Arena. We have athletes from all around the world, often with the same goals, but they're constantly helping each other and competing with each other in a healthy way by sharing their wins every week. If you try to do everything alone, that is where comparison destroys your confidence the most, because you end up just getting caught up in your own head, obsessing over the competition. But what if you worked with them? What if you helped them, but also pushed each other to keep trying to outdo each other? In doing this, you create a network of support where you can exchange knowledge, strategies, and motivation. There are countless elite athletes who are fierce enemies on the court, field, or track, but then best friends off it. Those relationships are what push the very best to the next level week in, week out. Building a positive network transforms comparison into a shared journey rather than strict competition. You can still compete fiercely with each other, but just like in every sport that you watch, shake hands afterwards and be happy for one another's achievements. That's what sport is all about, respecting your opposition and competition, because both of you know how hard it is to pursue greatness. Chasing your dreams in sport is a super lonely ride otherwise, and the more you isolate yourself, the more social comparison will torment you. So form your tribe, surround yourself around other highly competitive athletes, and you'll accelerate your progress.